One morning, Emily was pulling a cargo ship out of the big harbor. She did a careful turn around Bedford, the little bellboy who lives out where the harbor ends and the ocean begins. "Here we are," Emily called to the ship. "You're on your own now."
"Thanks, Emily," said the ship. "That was great tugging."
"Well, thank you," said Emily. Now, Blandford is another bellboy who lives further away from the big harbor. Emily did a jazzy little loop around Blandford. Then she did it backwards, just for fun.
"That was a great turn, Emily,"
dinged Blandford. Just then, they heard a croaky little horn. Sure enough, it was Digby, the cable ship. He was busy laying cable along the shore.
"Emily makes the best turns in the big harbor,"
shouted Digby.
"I get stuck just turning on me engine,"
he added to himself. You see, Digby is always getting stuck somewhere. Emily laughed, but it was nice that everyone thought she was so good at making turns. It was still early in the day. The sun felt warm and friendly on her hull, and Emily had nothing else to do. She decided to take her time getting back to the harbor. She set off again, zigging this way, zagging that. There was nothing better than whooshing through the waves with a great big smile. It was always pretty out near the far shore. Off in the distance, Emily could see a very special sight. The Pictou Peaks. Now, the Pictou Peaks are giant rocks that poke up out of the shallow water along the shore. They have the most amazing shapes worn down by the waves. Of course, Emily had seen the Pictou Peaks many times before on her way home. The peaks are a dangerous place for a boat to float, but today, well, today they look different. Today, they looked like a fun place to do fast turns. Should I? She thought. Well, the next thing she knew, Emily's engine began to pound louder, and her propeller seemed to be leading her toward the Pictou Peaks without her even doing anything. The Pictou Peaks towered all around Emily and kind of made her feel like she was floating in the middle of a great mountain range. She did a lazy little loop around one of the smaller peaks. It's not dangerous at all, she thought to herself. Emily sped up a little and did a snappy spin around a bigger peak. This time, she could almost feel the rocks against her bumpers. "This is fun," she shouted out loud. Emily began to make more turns around the Pictou Peaks. And you know, it was kind of funny, but the faster she went and the closer she got to the peaks, the smaller they seemed, and the bigger Emily felt. "Look at those," said Emily. Not that far away, she saw two peaks very close together, and it looked like there was just enough room for a tugboat to squeeze through. "I bet I could do it," she thought to herself. Emily turned towards the twin peaks. She slowed a moment to catch her breath. Then she roared her engine, spun her propeller, and off she went. "I can do it," she shouted. "I can do it." Those two peaks looked closer together than they did at first. Emily was going faster and faster and faster. Too late to stop now. "I can do it!" Only time for one last little turn to line herself up so she could squeeze through the peaks and... Suddenly, everything was very, very still. Emily tried to move, but she couldn't. She was stuck between the twin peaks. Back in the big harbor, Theodore was waiting for Emily to come home. "Bedford, have you seen Emily?" he asked.
She was here a little while ago,
Dinged the bellboy.
Isn't she back yet?
That's funny, thought Theodore. I wonder where she could be.
Things like this only happen to Digby,
groaned Emily. You see, Digby the cable ship was always getting stuck, not her. After all, she made the best turns in the whole harbor.
I bet I could get out of here by myself,
she decided. Emily began to wiggle and jiggle and rock and roll back and forth, trying to get herself unstuck from between those peaks.
I can do it, she grunted. I can do it.
But she was only getting herself stuck tighter and tighter. Now who should come floating by that very moment but Digby?
Am I stuck?
Said Digby.
I'm stuck,
replied Emily quietly.
Did I get you stuck?
Continued Digby. I got myself stuck, said Emily.
So, you're saying then,
Digby went on,
that I am not in any manner whatsoever, at all, currently stuck.
You see, Digby just couldn't believe that someone other than himself was stuck somewhere. Especially Emily.
I won't be stuck for long,
blared Emily. Emily roared her engine and tried to push herself free again, but she couldn't budge, not one bit.
Don't worry, Emily, shouted Digby. I'll get help.
Digby began blasting his croaky little horn before Emily could say a word. She certainly didn't want the whole harbor to know that she was stuck. Theodore was just about to turn back to the harbor when he heard the croaky horn.
That's Digby, he said.
He's probably stuck again. Theodore followed Digby's croaky horn all the way to the Pictou Peaks, where he saw an astonishing sight.
Digby,
said Theodore.
You're not stuck, said Digby. I know, Theodore. I can't hardly get over it myself.
Then why did you call me? Asked Theodore. Theodore slowly turned to look where Digby was looking and saw an even more astonishing sight.
Emily, what are you doing there?
Stuck, muttered Emily.
What'd you say, Emily?
Asked Theodore. I'm stuck, mumbled Emily.
You're what?
Asked Theodore.
She says she's stuck, Theodore,
hollered Digby. Well, Theodore just couldn't believe it. Emily never got stuck.
Well, what happened? He asked. Did a big wave suddenly come up and push you into those peaks?
No, said Emily.
Did a huge whale knock you off course?
Theodore went on.
Not exactly, said Emily. Did you slip on a giant sea snake?
Theodore was running out of things to think of.
I just got stuck,
said Emily quietly.
Well, don't worry, said Theodore. I'll get you out of there.
Theodore carefully looped around the peaks. It was a tight turn to make, but he nosed right up between them until he and Emily were bumper to bumper. And then he began to push. Emily sure was stuck. Theodore put more steam in his shove, poured on the power, and soon His friend came popping out between those two peaks just like a giant cork from a bottle. Free.
That was some good rescue there, Theodore,
called Digby, floating off.
See you later.
I never thought I'd be rescuing you, Emily, said Theodore. I didn't either, said Emily sadly. She felt terrible about getting stuck. Well, how did you get stuck? Asked Theodore. I was doing turns all around the Pictou Peaks, replied Emily. You were? Said Theodore. He'd never heard of anyone doing that. First, I did a little loop over here, explained Emily. Oh, that was great, said Theodore. And then, continued Emily, I did a spin around here. Wow, said Theodore. Emily, you're the best at making turns. Well, for the first time, Emily smiled. And then, she said, I tried to turn right through those two peaks. Right through them? Gasped Theodore. Emily began to head toward the two peaks again. But this time, she stopped. I won't try that again, she said. Emily, said Theodore, can you show me how to make great turns too? Sure, said Emily right away. And so the two tugs set off, zigging this way and zagging that. There was nothing better than whooshing through the waves with great big smiles. Dartmouth the cable ship was visiting the big harbor. He was laying his giant cable along the shore. Please move me a little closer, Theodore, he called. Theodore helped push the great ship a little closer to shore. Thanks, Theodore, said Dartmouth. I really couldn't do this without you. You're welcome, smiled Theodore. He just loved helping Dartmouth steer in and out of the winding inlets and coves around the big harbor. It was an important job, but most of all, Dartmouth was so nice. Oops, called a voice. Sure enough, it was Digby, the harbor's own small cable ship. He was helping too, kind of.
Barnacles and blisters,
Blubbered Digby.
stuck on the gibberty-spiggity cable again.
It seems poor Digby is always getting stuck on something. Theodore helped Digby untangle himself. There you go, Digby, smiled Theodore.
Thanks, Theodore,
Said Digby. I think I spend more time helping Digby than Dartmouth, he thought to himself with a grin. It sure is a great day to lay cables, said Dartmouth. The greatest, agreed Theodore.
The finest kind of day,
Chirped Digby. I don't think there was anything those three liked better than laying cables together, and talking about cables together, and, well, just being together. Working with you is my favorite thing in the whole world, Theodore said to Digby and Dartmouth. Why, thank you, Theodore, said Dartmouth with a big smile on his voice. I like working with you both very much, too.
We're the three good buddies,
Proclaimed Digby.
aren't we, boys?
We sure are, agreed Dartmouth. And always will be, concluded Theodore. The three friends were almost at the entrance of the harbor. Well, announced Dartmouth, I'm finished. For the day, added Theodore with a smile.
And what a superior day it was, too,
Chimed Digby. No, said Dartmouth. I mean, I'm finished laying my cable here in the big harbor.
Finished, are you?
Said Digby.
Superior. And what's next for us three good buddies, then?
Well, said Dartmouth, actually, now I'll be taking the end of my cable here all the way across the ocean.
Going away, are you, Dartmouth?
Said Digby.
Oh, well, that's nice. Off to new places and so forth. Superior.
Well, can you come back tomorrow? Asked Theodore quietly. Well, no, replied Dartmouth.
The next day?
Asked Theodore. Well, no, repeated Dartmouth.
When can you come back, Dartmouth?
Continued Theodore. Theodore, said Dartmouth slowly, I won't be coming back to the big harbor for a long time. Well, it suddenly felt like all the air had leaked out of Theodore's bumpers. Dartmouth was leaving. Theodore was so surprised and upset, he couldn't think of anything to say next. Digby, said Dartmouth, since I won't be here, someone has to look after my cables.
Well, that's only natural, said Digby. I certainly hope you can find someone good.
Would you like to be in charge of my cables when I'm gone? Asked Dartmouth.
Would I?
Shouted Digby right away.
All my starfish and little oysters, would I ever? Should I check cables every day, or some cables one day and others the next? Or maybe half the cables in the morning and half...
Hey, what happened to Theodore? Asked Dartmouth suddenly.
Now, that's funny, said Digby. He didn't even say goodbye.
Theodore floated off by himself. I don't want Dartmouth to leave, he said softly. I don't want to say goodbye. Saying goodbye felt like losing a friend, and that felt awful. The next morning, the other tugs set off for work. The dispatcher asked Theodore to stay behind a moment. Theodore, he said, since Dartmouth is leaving this morning, I thought you might like a special time before work to say goodbye to him. Oh, I don't really want to say goodbye, replied Theodore quietly. Well, I thought you and Dartmouth were good friends, said the dispatcher, who was very surprised. But he's going away, said Theodore. And all my friends live here in the big harbor with me. Theodore's job that morning was moving Barrington barge. He was floating along when he heard a familiar little croaky sound. Sure enough, it was Digby's horn. Theodore! Theodore! Shouted the little cable ship, all out of breath. Wait up! Wait up! Dartmouth is leaving now, puffed Digby. And I thought we could go and say goodbye together, and then I'm off to check his cables. Imagine me, Digby D cable ship, in charge of all them humongous cables. Oh, superior! I don't want to say goodbye, Digby, replied Theodore quickly. But Theodore, said Digby, puzzled, we're the three good buddies, aren't we? And we have to say goodbye together, don't we? We can't be the three good buddies anymore, replied Theodore softly. Dartmouth won't be here. Oh, said Digby slowly. Well, I'll just say goodbye for you then, shall I, Theodore? And with that, Digby floated off as fast as he could. After Theodore had finished moving Barrington barge, he started to go home to his dock. Just then, the harbor rumbled with the sound of a deep, powerful blast. It was Dartmouth's whistle. Two more long blasts followed. With a sudden chill, Theodore knew Dartmouth was saying goodbye to the harbor. Then, suddenly, a different sound echoed through the big harbor. It was Digby's horn. And it sounded like he was in trouble. I bet he's stuck somewhere again, Theodore said to himself, and hurried off in the direction of the sound. Theodore followed Digby's horn to a little cove, and, sure enough, there was the small cable ship.
Oh, Theodore,
sputtered Digby.
I was officially commencing my first inspection at Dartmouth's cables, and I guess I was kind of excited and so forth, and I wasn't watching where I was attending to. Well, I guess I kind of got stuck on this spliggity-sploggity sandspit.
Don't worry, Digby, called Theodore. I'll pull you out. Hello, Theodore, Dartmouth, said Theodore. What are you doing here? I was leaving, explained Dartmouth, when I heard Digby's horn. Oh, said Theodore. And also, I wanted to say goodbye to you, Theodore. Theodore slowly looked up at the big ship. Dartmouth, he began, I really wanted to say goodbye, but I guess I couldn't. I didn't want you to go away. Theodore, said Dartmouth in a very gentle voice, we'll still be friends, no matter how far apart we are. We will, said Theodore. Of course we will, said Dartmouth. You'll just have a friend in a whole new place. Well, said Theodore after a moment, I never thought of it that way. And one day, Dartmouth went on, when you're a bigger tug, maybe you can come across the ocean and visit me. Well, said Theodore, maybe I will. Can I come too? Digby was suddenly floating right there beside them. Digby, said Theodore, I thought you were stuck.
Well,
Said Digby with a sly smile in his voice.
I was kind of stuck. We stuck figuring out a way to get us both to say goodbye to Dartmouth, that is.
Well, Theodore just had to smile. Theodore, said Dartmouth, it really is time for me to say goodbye now. Theodore floated very close to Dartmouth. Goodbye, Dartmouth, he said in his bravest voice. I'm really going to miss you. Goodbye, Theodore, said Dartmouth. I'm going to miss you too, very much. It seemed everything in the big harbor stood still for a moment. Then, Dartmouth began to float away. Streaming his giant cable behind him. Wait, called Theodore. Well, how will I know where to find you when I'm bigger? I'll always be at the end of this cable, called Dartmouth. Anytime you want me, all you have to do is give it a tug. And then, with one last great blast of his horn, Dartmouth was gone.
Oops.
It was Digby.
Theodore, I think I really am stuck this time. Oh, God, I wonder how am I ever going to take care of these great big cables?
Don't worry, Digby, smiled Theodore. I'll always be here to help you. Theodore quickly got Digby untangled. And the two set off to check cables together. It sure is a great day to check cables, said Theodore.
Finest kind of day.
Chirped Digby.
Theodore,
Yes, Digby, said Theodore.
we're still the three good buddies, aren't we?
We sure are, smiled Theodore, glancing at Dartmouth's cable.
Superior.
Said Digby.